Hi, everyone. If you've listened to this podcast before or this is your first time, you will discover or probably already know that we ask a lot of you. Well, don't kill me, but we're going to ask you one more thing. Right now we have a survey because we want to learn more about you, our audience. So go to podsurvey.com/Katie. It's only going to take you 5 minutes. I try to be a nice person. When people call me on the phone, I feel sorry for them because that's their job. They have to ask people survey questions. So I try to do it whenever possible. So I'm basically guilting you all into doing this for us. So we ask some questions about yourself, what you like to buy. It's completely anonymous, but your answers will help us find advertisers that are well matched to you, your interests, and the show. Keep it clean out there, people. When you're finished, you can enter a monthly drawing to win a $100 Amazon gift card. How's that? Once again, that's podsurvey.com/Katie. That's podsurvey.com/Katie. Please, I'm sorry. Don't be mad at me. I will never ask you to do anything ever again. And that is such a lie. My nose is growing right now. But thank you for helping us find the best advertisers so we can keep the show free and they can sell you a lot of cool stuff. I love autumn in New York. I love autumn all over the place because I love the crispness of the air, the cerulean blue sky. I love the leaves changing colors.
You want to sing the song?
Autumn in New York.
I knew you did.
But anyway, I am really excited this autumn, but it's for a different reason. I'm excited because it means the election is just around the corner and it couldn't come soon enough. I want an advent calendar marking off the days until November 8th because I'm so sick of it.
I'm actually going to be sad when the election's over.
Seriously?
What is going to fill this hole in my life?
That's true. I mean, I do wonder, what will the media cover? What will I talk about at dinner? What will I talk about in the morning when I wake up and look at my iPhone and tell my husband, John, the latest, greatest, craziest stuff that's going down? All these things leave you scratching your head. It's enough to make you cry or laugh if you're watching late night television. And if you've been watching Samantha Bee lately, you've been laughing a lot.
I've said some foolish things, but there's a big difference between the words and actions of other people. Bill Clinton has actually abused women.
Stop! Jesus Christ, Donald. Who is advising you on how to deal with your misogyny crisis?
Let's also remember that one of the men who is advising Donald Trump is Roger Ailes.
Of course! Roger Ailes of the esteemed PR firm Ailes, Cosby, Polanski, and Gibson. They're good. I hear they've got a friend on the court.
Move over, boys. We got some estrogen in town. Do you want me to call you Samantha or Sam?
I like whatever.
Samurai, Sammy B.
Ooh. I like whatever falls out of your mouth and feels natural is what we will establish.
I think I'll call you
forward.
Sam.
That's perfect.
Sam, I am.
I love it.
So, I mean, you start this show, and this gift from God descends.
I know. Who could
named
have
Donald
ever known?
Trump.
I think he describes himself that way, too. A gift from God, yeah.
That's very spot on. I know. They were all gifts, though. I mean, the primaries were amazing. There were some amazing characters in that. And then when they couldn't find their way to their lecterns, I mean, there were just so many great moments with all of those guys.
I want to talk about sort of how you've approached this whole insane period of time. But first, I want people to know a little bit about you.
Oh, okay.
Tell us how you got into this crazy business of comedy.
I started doing comedy in Toronto. I started doing sketch comedy, actually, with a woman who is on the show now, Alana Harkin, and two other of our very, very good friends. We did sketch comedy. I mean, we did it. We didn't get paid for it. We just loved doing comedy, writing comedy, performing on disgusting stages in the backs of bars. And I came to it, I think, fairly late in life. I was in my late 20s when I first started doing it. And it took a lot of encouragement from other people for me to even start. It wasn't like in my blood or anything.
But how could it not be in your blood? Because you are so funny.
Well,
were you the class clown growing up?
No, I'm so quiet. I know it doesn't seem like I'm very quiet, but really I'm a pretty retiring person. Like, I don't actually like to be the spotlight except for 21 minutes per week. I really enjoy it. And then it is completely out of my system. So in life, fairly shy, always, writing and working. There was a brief couple of years period where I was a hoodlum in my teenage years.
Oh, that's right.
But I worked it out of my system.
Those were your James Dean
My
years,
James
weren't
Dean,
they?
I had those, but they were short-lived, thank goodness.
Then you got a job working, down the road on The Daily Show, which must have been sort of the mother lode. At the time when you got hired, did you realize what a juggernaut that was going to be?
It was already a juggernaut to me. It was I loved The Daily Show. Like, I adored it. I almost had a special room in my house that was a watching room. It was really the only show that my husband and I really were very dedicated to. And we watched it every night. It aired in Canada. So I watched it even in the years when it didn't have that feeling of great importance. I still loved it. I really loved it. And so even getting the chance to audition for that show was so meaningful to me. It was unthinkable, really, to be living in Canada and audition for a U.S. show.
And did you have a good audition? Did you feel good about it?
It was really good. I felt great about it. I trained for it really hard. It meant more to me than any other experience of that nature ever.
And you've got such a unique voice that is so welcome for me and so many other people in this late night landscape.
Thank
Just
you.
to have someone with boobs making fun of things.
I appreciate that.
Let's hear a little taste of the humor that you honed on The Daily Show. Let's listen to this bit from 2004.
Have you had your picture taken with a black person yet?
Well, I don't think so, but I wouldn't mind doing it.
That's something you'd be willing to try?
Why, certainly.
There's plenty of them.
I know.
Do you have any of them in Montana?
We don't, We don't have any. In fact, I guess our kids were pretty old before they saw one.
I do love when you go out in the field, as
sure.
we journalists say.
And field.
And talk to real people. Tell us about that skit for people who want to be reminded.
That was at the RNC in 2004. That was really my first convention. That was my first convention. It was a free-for-all. We just went out with cameras and just started asking questions.
And that was here in New York at Madison Square Garden.
Yes, it was. And that lovely man, he was really quite such a nice man, a delegate from Montana who was unfamiliar with the way the world works now.
Did you ever feel bad? Did you feel like you were sort of making fun of people who didn't necessarily deserve to be mocked?
Well, I think, through the years, I've definitely done that. I don't really do that anymore. I think my position on that evolved over time.
When it comes to figuring out the tone and the material you're picking, I guess take us behind the curtain, Sam, a little bit and tell us the process that you go through for each show. How do you put it together?
Well, we have our staff is incredible, and our research teams and our field department and our writers and everybody. It is I think it's a very free forum for people to pitch their ideas and thoughts about Jo Miller, she's the showrunner of the show. She has her things that she's passionate about. I have things that I'm passionate about. And together we create the template for a show. It's the stories that we read or think about that just, there's something that just happens where you just know it's a story that you can tell, that you want to tell immediately. We're really kind of running the show on a very gut level, which I think it's why we're enjoying the experience for sure.
And your show now is very different, obviously, from The Daily Show. It's once a week. It's not every night. Yep. You're not playing a character anymore. No. You're not the fake news correspondent.
No, I don't even know what to call myself anymore. I don't even know what I'm like creating a new category of
But you're
performance.
you now, right? Is that liberating, scary, some combination of the two to have your own sort of point of view about this stuff?
It's really liberating. I don't find it scary at all. You have to know yourself, that's for sure, because, if you don't want to do something in which your opinion wavers or you're unsure. So you have to be pretty solidly of a mindset about something in order for it to resonate as a piece as well. So I think that makes sense. And certainly, I love doing field stuff. It's my, it's what I cut my teeth on. So if we were on more than once a week, we wouldn't be able to do that.
So when your show launched earlier this year, you had a great tagline, which was, watch or you're sexist.
I loved it so much.
And
I'm so sad that we have to retire it.
Why do you?
Maybe we don't.
I don't think
know.
you need to.
It's the best.
And you are the only woman in late night TV. I mean, you're not the only woman in streaming, if one were to count that. But in terms of late night TV, you're the. And do you feel a special?
We're more late night adjacent. I mean, we are on at 10:30.
Late night adjacent.
We kind of get lumped into it, but we're not.
I have a new kid. That's very late night for me.
That's
actually,
late night for me too. That's true.
So, do you feel a special obligation or responsibility as the only woman, or do you want to make people laugh?
No, I don't feel I should. I guess I should feel that obligation, but I actually don't. And I think that's a good thing because, you have to keep it a little bit small. You actually have to keep it to give yourself freedom. You can't think too much about how you're perceived in the outside world. You can't be obsessed with it because it's really paralyzing. Like if you thought, the moment that you create creative content through committee, it's difficult to make a pure product. And so I keep it very tight. And it's helpful actually that I have 3 little kids at home because it limits the amount that I can crawl up my own ass about things, to be honest. Like it keeps...
Sounds really pleasant.
Sounds nice, right? But, you can't, I guess, it limits the amount that I can overthink things because there's just too much going on. Work is work, home time is family time. And so there isn't a lot of space to get too self-indulgent or reflective.
You have 3 kids, as you said. Do you let your kids watch this stuff? Do you talk about it?
We do talk about it. I mean, they're pretty young. They're 10 and younger, so they don't have a real handle on it. We listen to NPR in the morning, so they hear it. They definitely know what the tone is, and they were definitely wanted to watch the last debate, and I let them do it. And they stayed up for the whole thing, which I think is a remarkable feat for 3 little kids.
How did you explain that to them?
They have they do, things seep in. The right things seep into them. They are not a fan of coarse language at all. If they catch my husband or myself using it, they are incredibly disappointed in us. So,
do you have a curse jar where you have to put $1 in?
Not quite, but they are truly horrified by it. So they mostly remember the Anthony Weiner story from a couple of years ago. That was hilarious.
Oh, that's definitely the one to remember.
And, without explaining to them, they completely understood that. So they have a much greater understanding.
It wasn't a very complicated
It wasn't
story.
super complicated. But
how do you explain, though, Donald Trump's language persona and sort of the way he's conducted himself to your kids?
To be honest with you, I haven't had to explain it. They understand who he is. They've been drawing pictures of him speaking for months. I mean, since the beginning of the primary process. They've had their own impressions of him, and I just let those stand.
So we're going to take a quick break and be right back with more of Sam Bee. Before we get back to the interview, we just wanted to say how much we appreciate all the reviews that you guys have left on iTunes. And in fact, Katie and I wanted to read a few that we found particularly edifying or amusing.
Simply Smart wrote, "Love this podcast. It's got all the ingredients to keep me checking the list and downloading with each new entry. Katie is likable. Wasn't a fan." I am now.
Yeah, a little bit loaded.
Thank you, Simply Smart. You're not as smart as I thought you were. But thank you for the kudos.
And just to show this isn't pure propaganda, WJVJR says, content is engaging, but there's no need for a legit journalist to casually swear. On the other hand, I like her impromptu bursts of singing.
Whip It Cat wrote, "This is up there with This American Life and Death, Sex, and Money as one of my can't wait for a new episode podcasts. Highly recommended." Whip It Cat, thank you very much. I love those podcasts as well. So that puts us in very good company, and we're really appreciative that you're liking this. Thank you for taking the time to review our show, and we'd be grateful if more of you did the same, especially if you like it.
Katie, what are you reading right now?
I'm reading a book called Being 60. No, it's written by a guy who turned 60, and I think the subtitle is this the beginning of the end or the end of the beginning? Either way, it's pretty friggin' depressing.
Don't you wish you could hear your friggin' depressing book rather than reading it?
I actually do, Brian.
Because your eyesight's probably gotten worse?
Thank you very much. But my hearing has too, so that could be a problem. But Audible.com has a perfect solution if you love books, but you're busy like you and I are, and you don't have enough time to sit and read them because you're too busy checking out your Twitter feed. You can read them while you're on the go. You can go to the gym, during your commute. They have audiobooks from the leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, entertainers, magazine and newspaper publishers, and business information providers as well. And actually, I really want to do this more. So I'm excited to download some more books and start listening to them, especially when I'm trying to get my 10,000 steps in every day, Brian.
And just for listeners to our show, audible.com is offering a free 30-day trial membership. So you can go to audible.com/Couric today to start your free trial. Again, show your support, please, for Katie Couric.
Please show your support.
And get a free 30-day trial at audible.com/Couric.
Brian, have you heard of this mattress company called Casper?
I actually have.
They're actually supposed to be the new cool It mattress company. And I know that they engineer mattresses at a very fair price, a shockingly fair price, in fact, Brian.
And I know that the mattresses are obsessively engineered. Their in-house team of engineers apparently spent thousands of hours developing this mattress. It combines springy latex and supportive memory foams to create an award-winning sleep surface with just the right sink and just the right bounce. No dirty comments from you.
Okay, I'm holding my tongue.
Time magazine named it one of the best inventions of 2015. You get free shipping and returns to the U.S. and Canada, where Sam Bee is from. Try Casper for 100 nights risk-free in your own home. If you don't love it, they'll pick it up and refund you everything. And the mattress is made in America.
And I have to say, they come in a really cool, small, how did they do that size box. I've never seen anything quite like it.
And you get $50 toward any mattress purchase by visiting www.casper.com/Couric and using the offer code Couric. Terms and conditions apply.
We're back with Sam Bee.
Hi.
Sam Bry, Kate. So we've got some listener questions.
Great.
People actually took the time to call in and leave a voicemail for you.
That's very sweet. Thank you so much.
So let's listen.
Hi, my name is Morgan Easterly, and I have a question for Sam Bee. I love Full Frontal, and I love that you attack women's issues with such beautiful ferocity. So my question is, do you feel alone in the way that you choose to fully take these women's issues on with the power and with the intent that they deserve to be taken on? Or do you feel like other people are championing these things the same way that you are?
That's so interesting. That's a great question. You know, I don't feel alone. I understand that, you know, a lot of the issues that we talk about on the show aren't being really attacked satirically, but people are working so diligently on these issues. We did a story about the rape kit backlog. And, you know, I think it certainly helped to push closing a loophole, kind of pushed a little piece of legislation forward. I think it brought attention to the issue and maybe helped move things a little bit more quickly. And then people were very quick to think that we would take responsibility for it. And I really want to make sure everybody knows that there are people, hundreds and hundreds of people, and attorneys and activists and people who...
Like Mariska Hargitay has been working on that issue for a long time.
For a long time. It's not just, you know, one little comedy show doesn't really quite push things over the top.
It's not just one celebrity, it's other celebrities.
Every issue can be solved with the right ratio of celebrities.
Was that Kim Kardashian?
No, does it sound like her?
A little bit to me. Yeah, I don't know.
On the other hand, though, you know, you get on, you know, you talk about an issue on a show like yours, and it does have the ability to permeate in a way that a news story doesn't. There's something about it that really connects the audience to the cause. And I think you did that so beautifully with the Syrian refugee crisis.
Thank you.
Because I feel like there's so much out in the ether, I think, that becomes a mantra for people, especially depending on their news source. And nobody is able to say, whoa, 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 wait a minute, let's give it some context. And I think that's what you did with the Syrian refugee crisis. Tell us about your thinking behind that and why you wanted to cover it that way.
Well, I have to say that the refugee crisis, I can't even explain why, but it is a matter that is so close to my heart. I think about it a lot. I think about how, if ways to tell more stories, ways to bring more attention to it. So, with the show, we had the opportunity to go to Jordan and meet with refugees. And I think any opportunity that you can take to humanize people is a great opportunity.
Where did you do the interview, Sam, where you talked to the refugees and you were teaching them funny words like gluten-free?
Oh, yeah, that was in Jordan. They were all of the people in that program. That was the last stage of the vetting process, is trying to acclimatize them to life in the United States, trying to teach them a little bit. They have to pass a course right at the end. So they've gone through all of these safety checks and security checks and background checks and physical and health checks and all of these different things. And then right at the end, they have to take a course for a couple of weeks on American culture.
So I happily took over the class that no one asked me to take over. In America, people wear sweatpants all the time. Important. Take notes. Can you wear sweatpants to your own wedding? No. Yes, you can. Those are formal sweatpants. You have to buy them at J. Crew.
But it's such a place at the resettlement place in Jordan. It's a happy place. Everybody's on their way somewhere. Families are kind of getting together and they're going. It's mysterious and it's scary, but it's also hopeful. Everybody, listen, in their dreams, everybody wants to go back to their home in Syria and live the life that they were living before the war, but it's not possible. So why not try Chicago?
And what's your view of Donald Trump making the Syrian refugees a big political issue? I mean, his son actually tweeted, as you know, that if you have a bowl of Skittles and one or two of the Skittles could kill you, would you take a handful of Skittles? Ergo, we shouldn't take a handful of refugees.
I think it's appalling. I think they're just quite literally feeding people the worst, most vicious, toxic misinformation. These are human beings. They are vetted. They are literally spreading lies. I find it reprehensible. It's absolutely anti-Christian, anti-American values. It's everything that is wrong with the world that we live in. Is that kind of feeling of us and them is so destructive. It actually makes me feel physically sick.
Well, that's actually a pretty good segue to one question I wanted to ask you, which is perusing some articles about you. One word keeps coming up, which is anger.
Oh.
So the LA
was
Times.
Whoa, you mean hot?
Sensual.
Sizzling.
I wanted to focus on the more intellectual word.
Sure.
So the LA Times used angry white female as a headline. The Atlantic did a piece, The Anger of Samantha Bee. Rolling Stone called you outraged.
Aww.
Are you really that pissed off?
Well, here's the deal. Yes and no. I mean, I think we can all summon our outrage on specific stories. I don't stalk the earth like an outraged anger demon. I have a very level-headed approach to life and living. We have to summon outrage to make the show. We have to tap into that to make a show about things that we feel passionately about. We tap into that to make the show, but we live our lives as normal human beings.
But it must feel good to be able to express that anger. One of these articles talked about, there was a time where women wouldn't feel comfortable expressing their anger. So in a way, this is real progress for women.
Great. Good. We should be free to speak our emotions. I'm turning 47 next week, actually.
Happy birthday in advance.
Thank you. And I'm just done with it. actually very helpful. And I think that our experience is unique in television. As Joe and I, we laugh about this all the time because we're both in our late 40s and we just don't care anymore. Our ambitions, like this is our ambition in television. We are living it right now. So there's no future prospect that we have to be careful about.
Although for Hillary Clinton, it's still a big problem,
Sure.
Giving her permission to be honest. We have a clip about her first debate performance from the show. Let's listen.
What she needs to do is provide the substance with the entertainment.
Yeah. Come away enjoying it. Be a happy warrior. Enjoy what you're doing. Have a little lightheartedness. Show some humor.
So be perfect, but not too perfect. Save us from fascism, but don't be a bitch about it. No one was suggesting superficial changes for Trump, like try wearing a suit that actually fits, or embrace your baldness proudly, or don't snort your way through the debate like Jean-Pierre's prize truffle pig.
But you have to feel for Hillary Clinton in some ways, don't you, Sam?
It's very interesting to live life and see this election through the prism of having grown up a woman. It is hard to explain that when you are a woman, usually, from the moment you're born, you're kind of told how to look, what is pleasing, how to be a people pleaser, how to be agreeable, how to make people at ease with you. It's hard to learn as a woman. It was hard for me to learn to stop being a people pleaser. I still learn that lesson all the time. It's hard for me to say no to people. But eventually you learn it, and then you can't take it anymore. You have to explain to people that when you're a woman and you walk the planet, people tell you to smile all the time. They tell you how to look. You're constantly confronted with people's expectations, whether you're falling short of them or you're exceeding them. You're constantly told about it. Everybody's so conscious and aware of it all the time. It's nice to feel free to just throw off those shackles and do the show we want to do.
I think that's one reason SNL, that Kate McKinnon's caricature or whatever,
it's really great
of Hillary is so funny because you do sort of see that public-private conflict.
Totally.
And they should do something if she's elected of her first day at the White House where she just, talk about shackles,
I know,
right?
I know. She does play the character with so much joy. You can feel it. It's pretty beautiful.
About judgment. Secretary Clinton, do you think you have better judgment than Mr. Trump?
Yes. Of course I do. Donald Trump has terrible judgment. He makes bad decisions. He's spent his life cheating middle-class laborers. Laborers like my own human father, who made, I guess, drapes or printed drapes or sold drapes or something with drapes, and he was relatable, and I am also relatable.
What do you think about some of the criticism late-night comedians and people like you have gotten from folks like Ross Douthat? I always have a hard time pronouncing his last name, the columnist for the New York Times. Did you read that column?
I did read it. And
what did you think of it?
The title of the column, we should say.
It's Clinton's Samantha Bee problem.
I'm sure it's not the racism that's the problem, Ross. It's us. I'm sorry that we're making you all feel so uncomfortable. I don't take responsibility for, I don't think that I have anything to do with Hillary Clinton's rise or fall. I don't think I'm a problem.
But I guess his point is sort of this political correctness out of control. I sound like I'm channeling Donald Trump in a way, but kind of that all these institutions are taking these liberally progressive stands, I guess.
That late night hosts have become more like advocates for liberal views.
Or social commentators.
Yeah, rather than just comedians who are making us laugh. I mean, I think it's legitimate to say it's a long way to go from Jay Leno's humor, which was very kind of down the middle, isn't this all crazy, both sides are nuts, to the position you've taken, which is much more about one side is nuts.
I'm not really a super huge fan of things that are middle of the road. That's not what I personally respond to as a viewer. I don't like things that are focus grouped to death. I like a strong point of view. That's what I respond to. That's the material I like. The show is not for everybody, I would certainly assume. I don't really care. I'm sure TBS cares.
But that's great that you don't care.
Prefer that. But, I think what makes it niche or special in some way is that we're not holding back. And that's all we have is the purity of our voice. And if you can't handle it, or you think that we're pushing, what some people call political correctness, I just call progress.
Or decency.
Decency. I call, well, I'm sorry that the world is not to your liking anymore and that you feel stripped of your power and authority to speak, but we are tired of not having a voice, and so we will now speak.
Do you think any of this has gone too far, like the rhetoric about safe spaces in universities and only certain ideas are kind of allowed to be disseminated in, particular communities?
I don't, it's hard to talk about in general terms.
I think that, it is a fine line. I mean, I'm all for being sensitive to people, but I think what some find troubling, and I have at times, is the squelching of sort of free conversation, free speech, and the exchange of ideas that I think will move the ball forward in terms of having these discussions that help, at least acknowledge problems and then come up with solutions. I think that's when maybe the quote unquote political correctness can be an impediment rather than something that builds sensitivity.
But people have accused me of silencing them on our show, and I tend to disagree with that. I think I'm just presenting an alternate viewpoint. I understand that it's difficult, and I understand that it's challenging to have your expectations of the world challenged. But we're not trying to silence anybody. We're not trying to squelch conversation. We're trying to have conversations, and we're just expressing ourselves. And all we're doing is presenting things on a TV show. We're not shutting anybody down per se. People are free to speak. We're just also free to criticize them for doing so. I mean,
your former colleague, Jeff Zucker, who now runs CNN, gave a speech or was interviewed at Harvard recently, and he said if his network made a mistake last year, it was putting on these unfiltered Trump rallies, and that he regretted doing them. What do you think the media's role is in all of this, besides NBC, and kind of building up the Trump candidacy?
Well, I think it is a little bit like putting a frog in a pot of cold water and turning the burner on. I mean, how could anyone have known? I mean, really, how could we all have known? But there were enough times when, it's funny, actually, being away. It's something that you always notice when you're out of the country and you watch Al Jazeera or you watch
BBC,
CNN International, or BBC, or BBC. You see that they don't necessarily fill their airtime with 2 hours of an empty podium at a Trump rally. Okay? There's other things going on in the world. They will air documentaries. There are global issues we could be talking about. There are stories we could be telling, things we could be seeing, but that camera was very often trained on the tarmac of an airport with the Trump plane, an hour and a half away from arriving, and we're talking about that nonstop for hours and hours. So I generally object to that kind of coverage. It's not specific to Trump. I generally think that is a waste of everybody's time.
Do you ever wonder if humor propelled this candidacy of Donald Trump's, or lack thereof? A lot of people have traced back to the White House Correspondents' Dinner in 2011. Right. President Obama famously mocked Donald Trump, and we have a clip of that. We thought we'd play it for you and get your take.
All kidding aside, obviously we all know about your credentials and breadth of experience. For example, no, seriously, just recently, in an episode of Celebrity Apprentice, at the steakhouse, the men's cooking team did not impress the judges from Omaha Steaks. And there was a lot of blame to go around, but you, Mr. Trump, recognized that the real problem was a lack of leadership. And so ultimately you didn't blame Little John or Meatloaf. You fired Gary Busey. And these are the kind of decisions that would keep me up at night.
Oh, ouch. It was brutal. And I don't know if you've watched that videotape, but they're showing Donald Trump throughout completely stone-faced.
I remember.
And not laughing at all, not even pretending to laugh at himself. Mm-hmm. I guess there was an article that George Herbert Walker Bush someone brought in Donald Trump as a potential VP candidate for him.
In 1988.
Right. And he said, thanks, but no thanks. So I think he had political aspirations early on, but many say this moment is it was really revenge, right?
This whole campaign was kind of catalyzed in part
funny?
By this moment and Trump being determined to show people, no, I'm a serious force in politics. I'm not somebody who should just be laughed at.
I know someone who was a joke writer for those at those speeches, and it's so funny because we were all laughing. We were like, oh my God, he wrote did he write the joke that that started this whole goddamn mess?
and he might have.
He might have. I know.
We have another listener voicemail with a question. So here we go.
Stephen Colbert, Larry Wilmore, John Oliver, and Samantha Bee, all disciples of Jon Stewart and The Daily Show. What does that say about Jon Stewart? And after his Trump rant on The Late Show, how nostalgic and enjoyable was that to watch? Thank you.
That's a great question too. I love watching Jon. I loved watching him on Colbert. He's done a couple of things on Colbert. I've really enjoyed it. He did something on our show actually. He did a cold open for us that was really funny. Yeah, I don't have nostalgia for the past, but I do think of it. I think of it all the time. It informs everything I do, really. I do miss him. I'm looking forward to his new project, whatever it is. I guess we'll all find out.
We have to hear one more Samantha Bee moment before we say goodbye. And you've been so nice and generous. We can't let you go without playing a little of your bit on the Access Hollywood tape from 2005. Let's listen.
That 2005 Access Hollywood tape wasn't just lewd remarks. Trump was literally explaining a time-tested strategy for sexual assault. In fact, take a tic-tac and grab him by the pussy is the closest thing to a plan Donald Trump has described this entire election.
What did you think when you first heard that tape?
It's so funny. Someone at work, I hadn't heard it. I guess I was busy doing something. I hadn't heard it till the very end of the day. And he gave me the laptop and he was like, I'm just going to watch you watching this video. And my jaw had completely dropped. And he was like, it gets better. And then it happened. And then the world shifted ever so slightly to the left. And nothing's been the same since.
So after the election, are you going to be sad? Brian and I started this by saying, I can't wait till it's over. Mm-hmm. Brian said he's going to be sad when it's over.
What?
I'm sick. What can I tell you?
I find you remarkable.
So you're in my camp?
I'm in your camp 100%. I can't wait. There's so much other stuff. There is actually so much other stuff to talk about, but we can't. I mean, we can't talk about it. It's we're paralyzed until this thing is over. There are so many other stories to tell.
You're not going to miss this serious discussion of the issues facing our nation?
I am sweating. I can't handle it anymore. I just want to know who the winner is so I can live my life. I feel like we are going to need a period of recuperation. We have a great national anxiety. I'm hearing it from everybody. You should have seen my offices on the day of the first debate. We were all pale. People were shivering. I was shivering. You were
pitted out.
We all somehow had the flu, just watching with so much fear in our hearts. It's time for it to end. We all need to. Nationally, we need to cover the country in a dome and pipe in spa music.
And there is going to be one more cathartic / disturbing moment before the election actually happens, which is the Al Smith dinner here in New York that actually happens the day that this podcast is released. It's a white tie dinner in which both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump appear. They sit on a dais rather near each other.
What?
And the tradition is that they each give sort of self-deprecating, humorous remarks at this dinner.
I'm so fearful.
No, I have to tell you, it is. I've gone for a couple of them, and it is so much fun. I couldn't believe that Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump agreed to go to this dinner, and they do about like a 5-minute stand-up, 5 or 10 minutes, and they obviously get their best writers. So honestly, I think it is going to be such, excuse me for cussing, such a shit show. I'm actually pitted out thinking about it.
Are you going this year?
I am going.
You are going?
Sweet. Do you want to go?
What day is it?
It is Thursday.
Oh,
do you want to go?
God. I can't.
Why? You have to rearrange your sock drawer?
I'm going to be in Miami.
Why?
By the way, she didn't invite me, just for the record.
I do want to go, but on the other hand, why does anyone want to be president? They have to do that? Oh my God. That's going to be crazy. Oh no. I want to go.
Well, if your plans change and you want to be my date.
Oh, I want to be your date.
And
so
actually, we
badly.
can bring your husband, and because my husband's coming too.
Really?
We can go on a double date to the Al Smith dinner.
We will all be
I
sweating.
have other plans. Don't worry.
Oh, sorry, Brian.
I'm very busy that night.
Sorry.
So don't even bother
I'm sorry. I was
asking.
just being a mean girl. I'm sorry, Brian.
No, that's okay.
I can try to get you a ticket too.
No, it's
in the
okay.
balcony.
Yeah.
Our husbands will sweat right through their jackets. Just arcs of.
Well, you are so generous to come and do our podcast.
This is so fun.
Isn't she the greatest?
She
I
is the
love
greatest.
her.
We
You're
agree
the
on
greatest.
that.
No, you're the greatest.
No, stop it.
There are some people who like me too.
I like you.
Oh, I like
can come
you
to
too,
the All
Brian.
Smith dinner with
All
me
right,
anytime.
Anyway, thanks so much, and I want to get together with you.
I do too.
All right.
Okay.
After the election.
Oh, we'll be so happy. Color will come back to our cheeks. We're going to live.
That was so much fun. I just love her.
And by the way, Full Frontal with Samantha Bee airs Mondays on TBS at 10:30, 9:30 Central.
Do you think she'll be my friend?
I think she'll be your friend. I think she already is your friend, actually.
I know, but I want to hang out with her.
Isn't
I want
she
to eat
going
like
to your birthday
cheeseburgers
party?
with her. Maybe. Yeah, I hope so. She said she was. And all of you are invited too. Meanwhile, I want to thank Gianna Palmer for producing the show and Jared O'Connell for engineering and mixing it. And thanks to Mark Phillips for our theme music, which I really like. I play it on weekends. Our next episode will air less than a week before Election Day. Yay! So tell us, how are you getting through the final slog of a very long, very tense campaign season? What are your coping mechanisms? Leave us a message at 929-224-4637.
So you heard earlier what other listeners are saying about the show.
Mostly nice things.
Mostly nice things.
Thank you, because I'm very bad at taking criticism.
Well, what did you say earlier? You take it seriously but not personally?
I didn't say that, but I'm going to start.
Anyway, you can have your say too. You can rate and review us on iTunes. And don't forget to subscribe as well. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye. I hear music, but there's no one there. I see blossoms, but the trees are bare.
Okay, where's the giant cane?
That's right. Okay, gong me.
What's up? This is Hannibal Buress, and I got a new podcast coming out soon on the Earwolf Network. It's called Handsome Rambler. It's gonna be me talking about life on the road, sports, relationships, philosophy, books. Anything can happen on the Handsome Rambler. It's gonna be an extravaganza. Check it out, the Handsome Rambler. Coming soon on the Earwolf Network. You know what it is.
This has been an Earwolf production, executive produced by Scott Aukerman and Chris Bannon. For more information and content, visit earwolf.com.